Assalamu alaikum all the viewers. Hope so everybody would be fit and fine. In this video, we are going to discuss the Victorian age of English literature. First of all, have a brief look at the historical perspective of the Victorian period. The Victorian era is an age of British history spanning the 64-year reign of Queen Victoria that started in 1837 till 1901. It is one of the longest reigns in the history of England. In the year 1837, Queen Victoria succeeded William IV on the throne of Great Britain and Ireland. The period is marked by many important social and historical changes that altered the nation in many ways. The population got nearly doubled and the British Empire expanded. The period saw the British Empire grow to become the first global industrial power, producing much of the world's coal, iron, steel, and textiles. By this time, the role of the monarch was to reign rather than rule. The period is known for economic progress, poverty, and exploitation. The gap between the rich and the poor grew wide, and with drive from material and commercial success, there appeared a kind of moral decay in the society. Victorian era saw a wild growth of industries and factories. One very important factor of the age was its stress on morality. A few feminine code of conduct was imposed on them, which described every aspect of their being from the proper apparels to how to converse. Everything had rules. The role of the women was mostly that of the being angels of the house and restricted to domestic confines. They were financially dependent on their husbands and fathers, and it led to commercialization of the institution of marriage. Now, we shall discuss the characteristics of the Victorianism. The discoveries of science have particular effect upon the literature of the Victorian age. It is simple to mark the following four general characteristics. Number one is realism. Literature of this age comes closer to daily life, which reflects its practical problems and interests. It becomes a powerful instrument for human progress. Number two, moral purpose. The Victorian literature seems to assert its moral purpose. Tennyson, Browning, Thomas Carlyle, John Ruskin all were the teachers of England with the faith in their moral message to instruct the world. Number three, doubts are contradictory faiths and philosophies. It is often considered as an age of doubt and contradictory faiths and philosophies. The influence of science is felt here. Thomas Browning, the optimist, and Hardy, the pessimist, are regarded as most popular writers of the age. There is realistic literature with pre Raphaelite poetry that believes in art for art's sake. Number fourth characteristic is idealism. Though the age is characterized as practical and materialistic, most of the writers suggest a purely ideal life. It is an idealistic age where the great ideals like truth, justice, love, brotherhood are emphasized by poets, essayists, and novelists of the age. Now, we shall discuss some sort of growth in Victorian age. It was the growth of prose, it was the growth of poetry, it was the growth of novels in this age. After the Romantic Revival, the literature of the Victorian age entered in a new period. The literature of this period expressed the fusion of Romanticism to realism. The Victorian age is rich in literature. It produced two great poets like Alfred Lord Tennyson and Browning, Dramatists like George Bernard Shaw and John Galsworthy, novelists like Charles Dickens and Thomas Hardy, and essayists like Thomas Carlyle and Stevenson. The age is remarkable for the excellence of its literature. There was also the growth of prose. Victorian age produced two great essayists like Thomas Carlyle and Stevenson. Carlyle's major works include The French Revolution in three volumes, published in 1837, On Heroes, Hero Worship, and The Heroic in History, published in 1841. His prose style differs from the prose writers. He writes about people and events of the past. He has his own philosophy. He accounts great men as hero, whereas Stevenson writes famous essays in this period. A Night Among the Pines, Walking Tours, An Apology for Idlers, A Plea for Gas Lamps, El Dorado Familiar, Studies of Man and Books, and Crabbed Age and Youth. Stevenson's essays are an attempt in the direction of human welfare. He wishes to remove all that creates obstacle in human progress and happiness. For example, in his famous essay, An Apology for Idlers, he points out the importance of direct education based on self observation and self learning. He puts stress on the quality of being happy for personal sake as well as social sake. There was also a huge growth of poetry in Victorian age. The poetry produced three great poets, Alfred Lord Tennyson, Browning, and Arnold, Matthew Arnold. Tennyson is the most representative poet of the age. He represents Victorian conflict and compromise. He is a great lyric poet. His lyricism is deep rooted and dominates all of his poems. It makes his poetry sweet and smooth. His lyric can be divided into many parts like personal, dramatic, patriotic, and musical lyrics or songs. Among Tennyson's personal lyric, In Memoriam is very important. It is a collection of lyrics composed on the death of his bosom friend Arthur Hallam. Tennyson's dramatic lyrics are in the form of dramatic monologues. Tennyson is admired as a pictorial artist. His description of the nature is highly sensuous. Robert Browning is known for his dramatic monologues and philosophy of hope. Browning is the greatest writer of dramatic monologues. All of his monologues deal with the different aspects of love. Matthew Arnold is regarded as the greatest elegiac poet of Victorian age. He contributes a number of elegies, but the following five are of great merit. Number one, Tharsis. Number two, Rugby Chapel. Number three, The Scholar Gypsy. Number four, Southern Night. Number five, Westminster Abbey. These are the five elegies written by Matthew Arnold. Now, we shall have a brief look at the growth of drama in English literature of the Victorian age. The drama produced two great dramatists like Shaw and Galsworthy, George Bernard Shaw and John Galsworthy. Shaw is doubtlessly the greatest of all dramatists of this period. He contributed anti romantic plays of ideas like Candida and Apple Cart. St. John won Nobel Prize for him. Galsworthy is also a great dramatist. He is a problem play writer. He has a deep sympathy for the weaker section of society. In his dramas, he presents their problems to attract the attention of all the people of the society. It appeals more to head than to heart. The basic purpose of his plays is not to entertain but to make people conscious about others people's sufferings caused by the imperfection of law and society. His famous plays are The Silver Box, Strife and Justice. Now, we shall discuss the growth of the novel. The Victorian age produced two great novelists like Charles Dickens and Thomas Hardy. The spirit of revolt is much more intense in the fiction than the poetry of this period. The most prominent novelists of the period are Charles Dickens and Thomas Hardy. Dickens is a great novelist. He makes the minute study of the whole mankind. He presents a lively picture of human society. Dickens' David Copperfield is a representative novel in the sense that it throws light on the prevailing conditions of Victorian society. It is a social document that brings to light miserable condition of boarding houses, women education, child labor, and social injustice. Dickens is a social thinker working in the line of a social reformer. Hardy's best novel is Tales of the D'Urbervilles. Thomas Hardy published this novel in 1891 with subtitle A Pure Woman. Tales of the D'Urbervilles is a young girl who is raped by the Alec D'Urbervilles. She gets pregnant, but the baby dies. It raises a question how such a woman may be called a pure woman. But Hardy proves it. She later falls in love with Angel Clare, but he deserts her. Alec assures her that Angel would not come back. Her family starves and she becomes a mistress to Alec. But Angel comes back and Tace murders Alec and spends a few moments of love with Angel before she is arrested to be hanged. There was also a contribution of pre-Raphaelite poets in the time of Victorian era. Pre-Raphaelite poetry, or we can call it the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood is also known as the Or Raphaelites. Actually, Pre-Raphaelite, it was a group of English painters, poets, and critics founded in 1848 by Dante Gabriel Rossetti, who reacted against the artificiality of the art of the period. They wanted to return to the purity and simplicity of the Italian art of the 13th and 14th century. There were seven members in this brotherhood. The Pre-Raphaelites defined themselves as a reform movement. They were influenced by the ideas of the art critic John Ruskin, who considered art as a way to react to the ugliness of modern urban life. The main characteristics were fidelity to nature, sensuality, use of non industrial materials, re evaluation of medieval religion, and legends. The main representatives were Dante Gabriel Rossetti, William Morris, and Edward Burne Jones. William Morris created the art and crafts movement, which designed and manufactured a great variety of objects for interiors, like stained glass, wallpapers, tapestries, rugs, etc. They used handicraft and simple decoration in reaction to industrial machinery. The Pre-Raphaelite movement influenced the aesthetic movement. It originated in France, following the ideas of the Ophelia Goethe. It was a reaction against the materialism and the strict moral code of the Bourgeois. Aesthetes were not interested in political and social matters but isolated themselves in a world of beauty and art. Their motto was art for art's sake, which means the art does not have any moral aim but it's an end in itself. The followers of aesthetics led an unconventional life, full of sensations and excess. They wanted to be different from the working masses and they also rejected the Victorian moral values. The main representative in Britain was Oscar Wilde.